But if you talk like that, people call you crazy. Well, if I could discover just one of these things, and what changes the darkness into light.
We all need energy. Light is just one such electrical energy service. Energy services are the tasks performed transforming energy resources into useful energy, and this extends beyond just flipping the switch. Such services also include transportation of people and goods, heating, cooking food, and cooling, as well as using electricity to run our computers, home appliances, and fuel any industrial production. Energy demand did not arise with the invention of electricity, but people have always needed energy. The year is 1750. Here in a Satoyama village in Japan, the villagers meet to discuss how to solve their energy and resource problems. With the iron industry growing faster than the forest could keep up, little wood was left for cooking and heating. Together, people in villages and towns across Japan began to rethink not only how they managed their forests, but also the ways that different resources, such as water, fish, and rice paddies, interact with one another. They realized that forests need water and time to regrow, people need wood, rice, and fish to live, and the rice paddies benefit from the stable and rich forest ecosystems, as well as nutrients from both fish and the villagers themselves. During the Edo era, the concept of Satoyama arose. Communities gathered together and implemented land management practices to ensure that vital sources for energy, such as the nearby forests, could regrow and energy resources could be used more efficiently. But the birth date of cooperatives is actually much earlier. Welcome back to the first millennium BCE in the Persian Empire, when people constructed local qanats, an ancient Iranian system for transporting water over several kilometers and, believe it or not, through aqueducts underneath the desert, which are still in use today. A village elder, the Mirab, who was selected by the people in his community, headed this 3,000-year-old form of a cooperative. Village elders kept passing on this technology and its associated social values to younger generations. Still today, this traditional communal management system allows equitable and sustainable water sharing and distribution. Clearly, qanats are an example that demonstrates power by the people.
The cooperative concept spread in more established ways in the 19th century as a response to social problems such as issues of starvation and rural exodus across Europe. Just recently in 2016, the idea and practice of organizing shared interests in cooperatives was formally recognized by UNESCO. This underscores the value that lies in people coming together to find ways of overcoming problems in their local community. Around the turn of the 20th century, electrification is starting to come to cities. However, access to this source of reliable energy was often not prioritized in rural communities, as the government was more concerned about the electrification of cities in the first place. Indeed, people living in rural communities across Europe banded together and created electricity cooperatives to do just that: bring power to the people by the people. In one such example from 1919 in Bavaria, the parish priest spearheaded the foundation of a local energy cooperative, the Sammerberg Cooperative. Its hydropower plant brought electricity to about 10 remote communities, powering 70 motors, 2,500 lamps, and reaching more than 1,000 people. With this model, rural electrification spread across Germany, Italy, France, and also across the Atlantic. In the United States, the cooperative movement played an important role in electrifying the countryside. Let's listen in for a moment to these audio clips taken from the film By the People, for the People, about the history of American energy cooperatives.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we start a cooperative so we can build our own electric line.
So America's rural electric systems were born. In true democratic fashion, farmers elected their own directors and officers. They signed up as members because they had faith in cooperation as a practical way to get things done, to get electricity.
In the 1970s, disaster struck. The oil crisis hit many countries, and the world narrative turned toward energy supply struggles and the stability and security of the energy supply in the future. Car-free Sundays were introduced, and people gathered on empty highways. As a response, a second wave of citizen-led initiatives formed to fight for energy independence and turning toward using local sources of energy. It was also the birth of modern renewable energy. Let's move to Denmark to take a look. At the time of the oil crisis in the 1970s, Denmark was completely dependent on the import of oil for its energy supply. In the immediate aftermath of the crisis, Denmark prioritized the transition to local energy with an emphasis on wind power. The driving force to meet this major policy goal was community-based initiatives. It was the people from different villages and cities in Denmark and technical entrepreneurs who moved wind power into a modern context with new technologies and better energy efficiency, paving the way for shifting Denmark away from an oil-based economy. By the 1980s, dozens of community-based wind initiatives dotted the Danish landscape. The strong response from Denmark shows that the change to locally sourced, renewable energy is possible by and from the power of people. But as we know, not all energy problems are yet solved.
The expanding use of nuclear power was met with growing resistance. Anti-nuclear sentiment aimed at nuclear disarmament expanded to include the use of nuclear power. The movement grew following accidents such as the partial meltdown at 3 Mile Island in Harrisburg, USA in 1979, and the Chernobyl catastrophe of 1986 in the Soviet Union. Following the oil crisis of the 70s and the anti-nuclear movement of the 80s, the public demanded safer and greener energy sources. Since the 90s, another overriding problem connected to how we continue to consume more and more energy around the world has been added to the pile: the problem of global warming. Researchers have brought attention to the fact that the disposal space, represented by the atmosphere for greenhouse gas emissions, is limited. As CO2 and other gases accumulate in the atmosphere, the globe continues to heat up, causing changes in weather patterns and rising sea levels. This problem has been taken up by the UN, and the IPCC and the UNFCCC were created. Every year since 1992, the leaders of the United Nations meet to discuss solutions. However, these top-down solutions will not work without having the power of the people. So what alternatives and solutions have been found by the people and local communities to provide clean, safe, and reliable energy for all? We know that collaborative solutions have worked in the past, and now our published research provides ample evidence that citizen-led initiatives throughout Europe are jumpstarting renewable energy growth, providing reliable and affordable energy, and are hubs of innovation and engines of economic and social development. Let's take a peek.
A common worry, sometimes paralyzingly frightening, are the consequences of climate change. Let's see what the kids have to say about solving this global problem. Here's a solution focused on the next generation. Take the example of Belgium's Kids and Wind Foundation. Children own a majority share of the wind parks it builds. Yes, kids. The foundation's sole mission is to educate and raise awareness among children about climate change and the energy transition, and to create concrete solutions to build a better future for those children involved and invested.
Perhaps you're motivated by the idea of solidarity and how best to help others with getting access to clean energy, among other things. We've found initiatives across Europe that work the energy justice angle. Just look at Fair Planet, operating out of Germany with members spread across 4 continents. They connect their solar or wind projects inside Europe to partner projects in developing countries. every investment from its members is equally split into an investment in the global north and an investment in the global south. One of their projects focuses on solar-powered lighting solutions in the Philippines. These 450 solar lights provide a safer and healthier alternative to kerosene and have translated into raising the median household income by 25% and increased student study time by 45%.
The whole point of cooperatives is that together you can tackle issues which you couldn't if you were alone. Together, people can think bigger and more comprehensively. Check out the vision for the island Krk in Croatia, which has been created by the island's energy cooperative. Our vision: an energy self-sufficient and carbon-neutral island with several larger renewable energy utility plants, where the population lives in energy-efficient buildings, where most buildings produce energy equal to or greater than its needs, where water is collected and recycled and rationally consumed, where all organic waste in agriculture, tourism, and households is composted or used for energy, and where the traffic takes place mainly by electric vehicles.
Or maybe your own concerns lie closer to home. Energy prices are on the rise, and paying winter bills is becoming a burden to many. Members of the Kerry Sustainable Energy Co-op in Ireland combat fuel poverty. They help citizens with applications to energy efficiency retrofitting grants. Additionally, the co-op rents out electricity meters to its customers and members that enable them to measure energy consumption on their household appliances. This allows people to know and manage their sources of energy use and lower their bills.
Maybe your hesitation lies in your lack of time and knowledge about how to install your own solar panel, for example. Guess what? If you're in Switzerland, there are 11 cooperatives that will come to your house to help you install a PV unit on your roof. You can pay for this, or you can choose the more popular option. That is, have it installed without monetary cost, but rather take the amount of hours others spent helping you, and your newfound PV knowledge, and pay it forward. For example, with EWG Basel, the homeowner only pays the material cost. The planning and installation is free of financial obligations. In return, the homeowner commits to contribute the number of labor hours he or she received from the cooperative to the construction of future installations.
There are also many citizen-led initiatives that address transportation issues, such as the lack of public transportation. France's RailCop is even daring what most for-profit companies won't. The members of the cooperative are taking over defunct national rail lines to keep remote places connected. Or maybe you've thought about purchasing an electric vehicle, but your concern lies in the lack of EV charging stations. Citizens get together to meet that demand as well. For example, the renewable energy community Luce in Slovenia operates several small-scale PV installations as well as public EV charging stations.
Citizen-led organizations are uniquely positioned to provide for the needs of local economic and social development. In one such instance, Comunità Energetica di Brutta in Italy uses the production of renewable energy to give free electricity to the inhabitants of their town as a way of attracting and retaining its citizens to fight against rural depopulation. Others reinvest in the local economy.
People often feel powerless because it seems out of their reach to influence how energy is produced. But power can go back to the people. For example, with the one member, one vote policy used in citizen-led energy projects, you do have a say. Check out Energy Revolt in Luxembourg, who advocate for a shift from company-owned energy systems to those owned by citizens themselves. They state, "We believe a sustainable energy supply should be in the hands of the citizens, not large corporations. Recent years have seen the dangers of putting profits before people." These examples only scratch the surface of the landscape of European citizen-led energy initiatives. Let's dive into the data with facts and figures in order to visualize the scope of these initiatives across Europe.
Statistics on citizen-led energy initiatives are essential for quantifying their impact. Some say only what is counted counts. So, we decided to start counting the initiatives, people, projects, and what they've achieved. You'll see that they're not a marginal phenomenon. It's a movement, and that's backed by data. Throughout Europe, over 2 million people are members in over 10,500 citizen-led energy initiatives. Together, they have created nearly 23,000 projects in different aspects of the energy transition and are jump-starting Europe's renewable energy growth. This, of course, means wind, solar, and hydro, but many are also experimenting with biogas, hydrogen power, energy storage, mobility, public education, and more. Across Europe, these initiatives have collectively installed over 16,000 production units, with 7 to 10 gigawatts of total capacity. To put that in perspective, that's about the capacity of 20 average-sized coal power plants. The capacity divides into 43% wind, 21% solar, 2% hydropower, and 34% others, such as energy from biomass and district heating. From 2010 to 2020, citizen-led energy initiatives quadrupled their renewable capacity from 2.5 gigawatts to nearly 10 gigawatts. While this is only roughly 1% of all of the renewable capacities in Europe, these projects could cover the energy consumption of all of the people in the movement, as well as their households. Note that not all of them engage in these projects because they are motivated by self-sufficiency, but often to serve their customers and provide energy services to others. In some countries, the contribution of citizens is even more substantial. For example, they own about 5% of Belgium's total renewable capacities, and in Finland, one cooperative represents 15% of all renewable energy produced in the country. Citizen-led initiatives continue to invest in meeting today's energy demands and in the future of their communities, mobilizing 6 to 11 billion euros so far. This means, on average, each member invested between 3,000 and 6,000 euros in the energy transition. But these initiatives are not just for the rich. Many groups exist where members can join for just 100, 10, or even €1. And money invested by these citizens tends to circulate locally. This money is often spent on local contractors and artisans and helps enrich and benefit their communities. For example, in France, citizen projects are estimated to create twice as much local value as outside developer-led ones. And, as we saw, citizen-led initiatives do more for the transition than just produce renewable energy. From dense city centers to booming suburbs to remote rural communities, Europe's citizen-led energy initiatives are local energy providers, promoters of ecological principles, pioneers of social innovation, hubs of technological development, and engines of local economic stimulation. They indeed play an indispensable role in transforming communities. Citizen action initiatives are built by and belong to the communities they serve. Through concern for the well-being of people, nature, and the world in which we and future generations live in, citizen-led energy initiatives empower people to collectively realize their energy aspirations and nurture a long-term vision for sustainable energy growth, economic and social development, and environmental responsibility. As member-run, member-owned, and member-serving groups, all these initiatives demonstrate power to, from, for, and by the people. It is citizen leadership that brings the change.